Welcome to the MEMA boardroom. The MEMA boardroom consists of two 80-inch televisions, a pan-tilt zoom camera, and a microphone set on the table along with audio dialer. The MEMA boardroom is also unique in the sense that we've taken a fairly complex set of AV equipment and consolidated the interface of it into a control system run on the iPad, which lives on the credenza at the back of the room. And so we're going to walk you through the different systems of the boardroom now. So as I mentioned, there's an iPad at the back of the room. It sits in a charging cradle. The iPad itself has a magnetic sleeve on it. So the iPad can be easily disconnected from the cradle itself, but when it's dropped into the cradle, it will charge. And you'll notice that in this particular scenario, the application is already running. If you get here and for some reason the application isn't running and you see the home screen for the Apple iOS, you'll notice this icon. It looks like a compass. The application is a compass. It's a blue background logo for the compass that is running in the toolbar of the iPad in iOS next to the settings menu. So you can simply launch that, and when you launch that, this particular interface will show, and you can press anywhere to begin, just like it says. So press anywhere to begin, and you will then be prompted to move to this application. What this does is basically it consolidates all of the different tools that are available to you in the room into simple setup menus, so that everything you do, so that it automates everything that you do. In this case, we have three modes of operation. We have the presentation mode, we have an audio conference mode, and we have a video conference mode. And so you simply select select the icon that best suits your application requirements for the use of the room, and then you will, and then you'll move on. So one of the things you'll notice is that when you select this, select a particular application, let's say it's presentation, you may get prompted with this. What's happening is the wireless iPad has to communicate to the wired electronic equipment that sits inside the credenza in the rack, and that sometimes takes up to about 10 seconds. For the initiation process for all of the equipment to be configured for your use based on the type of application you're going to do. So if you see this menu, don't fret, just wait. This will actually count down for you right here, and then it'll tell you when it's when it's ready to go. So we're going to start with the presentation application, and I'm going to start by indicating that there is a volume slider here. The volume slider is obviously for the overhead speakers, and it will adjust the sound in the room based on the volume slider itself. It automatically adjusts the amplifier that lives in the rack. Okay. You also will notice that the speakers are muted or are unmuted by default. If for some reason you want to mute the audio, you can simply touch this button. The gray icon will turn to red to let you know that it is now muted. And of course, the unmuted will change to muted. And then you just tap it and this audio will come back. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a left display and a right display. The left and the right orientation is set up as if you're looking at the displays. So so you've got the two displays, and you can do two things simultaneously using the two displays. As an example, if I want to use the Barco wireless presentation system on the left display, I can do that, and then I can use the table HDMI. And to select that, you simply tap the icon, which best represents the type of the system you want to use. You also have a room PC and an extended room PC. So just like dual monitors for your Windows laptop, the left and right displays will operate that way. By default, room PC is going to operate just on the left display, and to extend that PC, you'll simply press extend room PC on the right display, and now you'll have a larger canvas, very similar to dual displays in your office. And so that's particularly useful. You'll typically select these if you wanted to do a video conference, but we'll cover that in another moment. So you can do dual displays in that particular capacity, or again, you have Barco, you have table HDMI, and you have the room PC, and you can select those. You'll see here that we have on and off icons for the individual TVs. This is in the case that you might want to power off one of the displays and have the other display powered on. By default, when you select the presentation icon from the main menu, both TVs will power on. You also have a whole separate audio section, and the reason why is because you may be presenting the Barco on the left display and the table HDMI on the right display, and you want to be able to send audio from one of those two presentations, but not obviously both. So if you wanted to send the table HDMI, you would tap that, or you would tap the Barco, or you would tap the room PC, and now the audio will play over the overhead speaker. When you're done with the application, when your meeting is complete, you simply press the end presentation button. The whole room will shut down. You return the iPad to its charging cradle and walk out the door, and you should be all set. We'll now move on to the video conferencing. This is a little bit simpler of a setup, but basically in the video conference world, we have it set up for room PC to be used as the default, because MEMA is using applications like Skype and GoToMeeting, and so when we power on both displays, it's going to default to the room PC. It's going to default to the room PC, and you will want to make sure that that PC is extended so that you can participate in the Skype call and have participants on the left screen or the right screen and your content on the opposite screen, as an example. The speaker is again unmuted by default. You have a room volume slider. This affects the far end sound of the actual room, and you have 3 mic pods on the table that will handle the microphone setup for the individual room, or for the audio portion of the video call. Each of those mic pods has a mute button. It's highlighted in red. It will change colors when you tap it for mute functionality for the actual mic pods themselves. But if you happen to be in a video conference, as an example, with one of your other offices, and you said, I don't want to extend the room PC, but I do want to be able to dedicate an additional laptop to show a local presentation, then you would simply tap the table HDMI after you've plugged in at the back of the room, and now you would have the room PC and a Skype call on the left monitor, and the local content from a laptop on the second monitor. Those in the video call will not be able to see the table HDMI content. That's just going to be used for the local room itself. And the same applies to the Barco in this particular scenario. Again, as I repeat, those on the video call will not be able to see any of the content from these two scenarios. They will only be able to see content from the room PC. So make sure that you recognize that content sharing in a Skype call or GoToMeeting application is only going to come from the room PC. So if there's a presentation or there's a Excel spreadsheet that you need to be able to share into that video conference, the room PC is located in the rack inside the credenza, and you can simply take a thumb drive and add it to the desktop of the room PC if you want to be able to share that. The other way to do that is to log in through O365 and access your online applications and online content in that particular capacity. The room PC does not have the ability to control the camera itself. So very similar to the 1904 conference room, you have the exact same camera, and you'll actually want to be able to potentially be able to pan, tilt, or zoom that camera functionality. The camera is set up so that you can, the room PC will recognize it as the USB camera input, and it'll also recognize the MT505 as the audio or mic input in a video call. However, control for the camera can't be done through the PC. So as I mentioned in the 1904 conference room training video, these are your pan and tilt functions, and these are your zoom functions. More than likely, you're going to use the zoom function far more frequently than you're going to use the pan and the tilt function. You have a slow zoom and a fast zoom. I recommend using the slow zoom until you get very used to the camera and how fast it functions. If you need to shut the lights off in the room, you do have a backlight functionality button. The camera is set up to autofocus, but you do have manual focus controls on the bottom of the remote. However, I really wouldn't suggest that you mess with those functionalities too much. Let the camera use its auto adjustment features for the best experience, and also, frankly, the most hands-off experience. Moving on to the audio conferencing functionality. The audio conferencing functionality is a combination of setting up the amplifier and the speakers in the room to be able to pair with the telephone, the telephone dialer and the mic pods that are on the table. The audio conferencing functionality, when you select that from the main menu, this is the only thing you're going to be able to do, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But again, you do have a volume slider here that will control the far end volume only. So only those people who are in the phone call that are obviously not in the room will actually be set up there. If you want to mute them, then you would tap the speaker mute button. It is unmuted by default, but you would actually tap that. One thing to keep in mind, this is very important, when you finish your audio call, not only will you hang up the telephone, the dial pad on the telephone, you will also want to end the audio call so that the rest of the AV systems will reset back to their home configuration for whoever might be using the room next. So that's a two-step process to be able to end the use of that particular functionality. You're going to first end the audio call on the iPad and then hang up on the phone, or hang up on the phone, but make sure that you tap the end audio call on this particular, on this interface. So as I mentioned, you also have the audio dialer. This is it says My Spider, and it is the microphone in the center of the room. Very similar to most telephones. You've got, you have, all the functionality that you might expect as far as off hook and, hanging up the call. You dial the same way you would dial from your desk, and it'll connect the call. And again, the far end audio is going to play over the speakers, and all three of the microphones will be used so that you have full room coverage for the audio settings. And that pretty much wraps up the boardroom from a functionality perspective. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Rebecca or AtCom, and they'll be happy to help.